Alrighty, welcome to the 27th episode of Magus Talk. Today, Jay succeeds. That's as simple as I can put it. In fact, he's right on cue and he's right on script, so to speak, as far as my organization of the system goes. So what he'll describe you is different than the previous ones. Finally, you got a successful process. We're not going to get into any kind of ritualistic details as usual. He has it more or less down pat. What I'm going to tell you in this introduction is what he's doing, basically. And I'm going to make a little bit of a correction again because he uses the runes to understand the situation, which is perfectly legit, and I commend it. And he interprets them more or less correctly by hook or by crook, while at the same time not really understanding the nature of the runes he's getting. So I'll get into that just a little bit. And then I'll let Jay tell you all of the story. And right after that, I'm going to make a few comments. We're not going to make an extended commentary. However, this is important because what Jay did before was summon the first portal of the east. It begins in the east, and then you have the second portal going further south, and the third portal further south. And in the eastern portal, what you do is activate the connection with the so-called etheric or underworld web. This is the web of the unseen. So Baal opens up the body-mind into perceptual compatibility with the web, and Agaris plugs that into the earth force because the underworld is terrestrial, so to speak. This is not a celestial underworld like the Egyptians had. This is a terrestrial dynamic, and it's linked with the natural world and the world of the human collective as well. So the body is primed, and then it's plugged into the terrestrial dynamic, and then the two support the portal opening. It's an artful thing. And you gotta know that the human relationship with the portal is characterized in this system by the numbered card. And in this case, it's the Two of Swords. And the Two of Swords is like walking a tightrope. You're moving through a territory that's kind of uncharted, and you gotta balance dynamics in a way that's often not easy. It's challenging. And if you lose your balance, you fall to one side or the other, and things are shaken. So this is a first contact. It's the East, and the East represents the future. It represents the incoming, something incoming into the present. And so this is what we need to do first, because the East is also the direction of birth, the direction of spring, the direction of the sunrise, the direction of newly born activity. And there's always a sense of energy and enthusiasm with it. The West, on the other hand, where his current dynamic is concerned, is about the past. It's what has set, or it's moving into setting. So the Southwest in particular in this system is where, it's not the Southwest, actually it's the Northwest, I'm sorry, because it begins in the West and ends in the North. We're using, and it begins just like one is sunrise, the other one begins in sunset. Just like one is the spring, the other one is the fall. So that's the harvest. That's your karma. That's your experience that is established. And it's moving into a dynamic of processing. So the West has a totally different attitude than the East does as far as the number cards are concerned. Here we have the Two of Cups. And the Two of Cups is about harmony. It's about blending emotionally. It's about blending spiritually, you might say, intuitively. So it's something much more, the balance in this case is much more harmonized. And so it's no surprise that Jay talks a lot about harmonies with his music. In addition, the Jinn of the West, the Jinn of the White Pillar, the Day Jinn, is Phoenix, or the Phoenix. And this Phoenix is compatible with artistic individuals. So it inspires artistic activity, poetry, music, even the liberal arts. So Jay in this case, and not the liberal arts in terms of philosophy, painting, the fine arts, I'm sorry. So Jay senses this as a musician, and it does inspire something. And he's going to talk about that. And at the same time, you've got Halfus, which is the protective influence around this. So these pillars are a protective martial dynamic that keeps the baddies out, so to speak, to allow the phoenix rising in the West. That's the paradox here, because the phoenix rises and inspiration rises, and the so-called spirit force or kundalini or your own inner pillar rises. And remember, he has this rune that he thinks is the sun rune that the Nazis used. Sowello, but he has Ewaz, which looks like an S, but it is actually an I with a much smaller extension on the top and the bottom, and it represents the world pillar. It represents also the human middle pillar. And this is what's emphasized, and this connects worlds. So right now, it's telling him that, Jay, you're in tune with the East already with the web, and now this in-tuneness is also blending with the West, because this is not just about opening a portal in one area and then opening a portal in another, and that's that. This is about connecting the East-West axis, because he's forging the first cross. As this moves forward, he's going to open the south direction. He's going to open the north direction. And eventually the crosses will expand, because he's going into the portal of the east, southeast. So from the east, he's moving a little south. And then from the west, he's moving a little north. And then from the south, he's moving a little west. And from the north, he's moving a little more east. And so on and so forth. So it's a progression of a fourfold simultaneous presence of jinn and angels. And you sustain this, and this is what transforms you, the ability to sustain it. They don't go away. I mean, the Eastern jinn do not go away when you open up the Western ones, especially when you're doing it. I mean, you might say, okay, I release the jinn and banish and all of this. So it's not up front and center all the time to distract you. But as you're doing it, what you're doing is that cross connection. These aren't done in isolation. And that's part of the reason why this system doesn't abide by the old rules in the other grimoires, in the older grimoires. First, you have an angel coupling that's harmonious. And in this Western direction, it is emphasizing that from now on, your karma is going to be harmonized. So in the East, it's a new thing. And we're dealing with the Fool card here. We're dealing the trumps that define the characteristic of the portal itself. In the East, it was the Fool of the High Priestess, which is like a novice, an initiatory dynamic with what the High Priestess represents, with the opening of the temple, or the opening of the world into the inner self, the true world, the deeper world. And then in the West, you have the Fool of Death, which is the entrance and initiation into a deep transformative dynamic that is done so harmoniously that it doesn't seem like the death we know. It is more like a transformation. So I didn't design these things in analytically thinking about what fits where. I took the system as it was. This is the order of progression that you find in the Lesser Key of Solomon. And then the Shem HaMephorash angels, those are the order of progression you find in Kabbalah. It's just that the first one goes with the first jinn and the other ones fall into place. And they all happen to be aligned and synchronistic. And even if they're not perfectly synchronistic, there's a reason for that becomes obvious, and it's part of the work. It progresses the work. So the system isn't like, oh, the genius of me. The system is basically a collaboration with the unseen through my own cultivated perception in order to accomplish something shamanistically. So that's why I say take out religion. I don't do that in order to say, okay, you're just, sidelining the dangers here. No, this is shamanistic, and anybody who is aware of amateurishly or just by the information of what shamanism is, it's not a safe thing. It's not like a populist movement. There's only special people could become shamans, meaning specialized sensitivities, and they would often have to do this they realized they were shamans through some kind of crisis or an initiation where they activated or triggered something. And then what they don't tell you is you don't just come out with abilities, then you train or you cultivate, or however you want to say it, because training is a little too martial. It's a little too procedural. This is more of an organic growth process, a natural opening. So, but at the same time, it's part of your initiative. So it's like cultivating something, cultivating a plant. So you help its natural process along by giving it water, exposing, making sure sunlight's there, and all of that. Quality of the soil, etc. So what's going on here is very major, and the difficulties Jay was experiencing in the beginning were natural to the system. That's expected. But once you get the ball rolling, the good news is that he's gained a sense of experience, the treasure and wealth of experience here that's going to carry over to the rest, because he's opened up an east-west flow. And that east-west flow is not stable yet, because until you do the north and the south, which represent like the axis of the earth, the stability aspect, the anchoring. So when you have the axis, then the east-west is really a rotation around that axis. And that's another thing, because the Aihua's rune that he talks about is the pillar of the earth. And the Tyr rune that we talked about before, the one that looks like a vertical arrow, is also the world pillar, only, as the great Edred Thorson said in his book Rune Magic, a handbook of rune magic, Futhark, a handbook of rune magic, it's called. It's a classic in the genre of popularized rune lore. So as he said, well, the Tyr rune is about separation. It's about separating earth and sky to maintain order between them, whereas the Aihua's rune is about the connection and communion between earth and sky, just like in the spinal pillar. So this is telling him that, yeah, you're preparing this, because then the rest of it, one of the oldest runes found, is a rune that has the cycle of the yearly progression of the sun, represented by the Hiera rune, which is like the rune of harvest. And this was with almost like a cycle around the axis. So you have the circle and the axis. That's one of the oldest shamanic symbols. It's been found in caves, a skull with a stick, or a skull on a stick with a circle drawn around it. And that's tens of thousands of years old, even more. So it's one of the first shamanic type symbols, and also used with burials and stuff. So it's basically the circle and the axis in between. And that fundamental representation is what we're doing here. And this, I dare say, can be called the Ring of Solomon, the true Ring of Solomon. Especially if you take the word not as some name of a king somewhere, but as a word meaning the man who has completed himself, or woman who has completed herself. The man of peace, but peace in the sense of everything being in its right place. So of course it's peaceful. There's no conflict. There's no upset. There's no chaos. The order is natural and correct, without being correct in any artificial way. Like I said, it's natural. So I want to emphasize this, because from here on, Jay is going to move a little more rapidly, hopefully, I believe so. So Jay, you didn't do anything wrong. You just went through and were guided by the forces of the system itself, as well as your own intuition and energy sensing. So you didn't need to know the specifics. So your book probably said, okay, when we do divination, the Aihua's rune means you have to wait for something. But in the sense of the esoteric sense of what it represents and what was trying to convey because he picked it twice. And he'll tell you that. I won't get into that, how he did it. But it's like shows that, no, this isn't some random thing. So Jay succeeds here, and he'll tell you through what he benefits, how he succeeds. And I'm just going to wrap it up afterwards, because his story kind of speaks for itself. Now, I do want to add that he did a divination with the runes, and he has he picked up one rune, the Manas rune. First rune was Uru's, the past, which is essentially his structuring of everything and his gaining the power, especially the earthly power. And then it comes to Manas, where that's the human mind. It's about humanity, human relations and everything. So he's dealing with people, but he's dealing with his own mental integration of the system. Because his question is about the system itself and his work with it. And then the third one is like, okay, dude, you finally access the pillar. Because the pillar, even though we're not dealing with Hinduism or Tantra or anything like that, the middle pillar does play a fundamental role in the system. The Ring of Solomon is a fundamental structure. And to go even further, there is a Jinn in the southwest direction that is a fundamental ruler, Jinn king of the southwestern quarter, known as Asmodee. Asmodeus is a pretty infamous presence in esoteric lore in the West, stemming from the Eshma Deva, which is the spirit of rage and lust, and in Judaism it transferred like that. So it has a very negative connotation, but Asmodeus is also the Jinn that helped build the Temple of Solomon. So it represents qualities that may be prone to corruption, but at the same time, they serve a purpose in terms of organizing and structuring. And Asmodeus essentially is the intelligence of the structure of the ring that can activate. Even in the grimoire, it says the ring of virtues. It bestows the ring of virtues. What the hell is that? That is the ring that you're working on. But since most people don't really treat this as a system, it's just a bunch of Jinn slapped together, so we just do whatever we can. We do this one, maybe we take them in order, maybe we do it in another thing. I started it that way myself. The way I promoted it with Jay and Tara before was in terms of ranks. Let's do this rank first, the one soldier, which is Furkas. Then let's go to the other rank, which is the presidents, and then let's go to a third rank, And we went through the ranks, and because they're associated with the planets, we did this in that order. Although from first, the high planet, like Saturn, is represented by the knight or the soldier. Jupiter represents the princes, and then and so on and so forth. So all I can say now is take it away, Jay. Tell us what happened.
Okay, so let me give you an update. Oh, didn't even say hello. Hello, Ari. Hello, Tara. Okay, so let me give you guys an update on the genies. Oh, and hello to everybody else listening as well. Before I start in with that, no, actually, yeah, let me just start in with the genies. So I think I left you guys with Baal and Agaraz in the east, and I think I summoned them both successfully. I think that's what I said in the sound bites. If not, just know that I did. And then as through Ari's guidance, then I just, once I successfully summoned them along with their angels, then it was pretty easy to make one the day Jinn and the other the night Jinn. Now, when I say easy, it's just like, okay, you just do it, and then you just kind of wait for it to happen. I can't push it. I can't make it go any faster. I can just kind of do what I do, and I can feel it, man. I can definitely feel one going into the day position, the other going into the night. I can call them up with the seals, and they come along with their angels. It's really cool, but there's still a waiting that has to happen, because it's just, this is what I think. I think the genies are like, look, this is a new thing. We're going to take our time doing it. I've never been teamed up with another genie this way. So that's what I think's going on. Now, the runes, and so Agaraz and Bal took I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and then bang, it was there. So I chose some runes in this process to like make sure I know what was going on. And the first rune, which was the past, was Uruz, Uruz. And then the second one dealing with the present was Manas. The one that looks like an M, but there's an X in between or something like that. Anyway, those two made sense to me. I can't remember what they are now, but I understood them. It's like, okay, I get that. Cool. I'm with it. But then I chose Awaz for the future, which is it looks like an S. And it could come from the what the Nazis used for the SS. But anyway, this rune is, when I read up on it, I'm like going, well, I don't really know why Nazis would choose this for the SS, but I thought it was like lightning bolts or something. But that could be something completely different. But this rune dealt with waiting. And so it's like, now, at the time, I'm like, no, this is crap. This is not talking about the genies because I don't feel like waiting. So what I figured was, okay, maybe it's talking about my nephew, and because my nephew is hell-bent, set on not going to Colorado, which means, that really depletes the band. The allure of the band is our 3-part harmony. But the good news is I'm getting better at singing. So, and I felt that it's mainly just being able to sing over a mic and just doing it every night. And when you do, you just learn how to use it, just like you would your guitar or your mandolin or whatever. It's just it's another instrument. And I can't... I've only sang acoustically, and I sang a little on stage, various times in my life, but I wasn't mic'd up. So anyway, I'm not too worried about that. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, yeah, sure, I can be patient with Mason. I mean, if he never wants to sing again, okay, fine, I don't care. It's cool, but I was thinking maybe the rune has something to do with that. So I did another blind choosing of the rune after a few days of trying to understand what was going on. And I even had a few dreams, like, letting me know some things, but I'm like going, I still don't think it deals with the genie, so I'm going to make another draw at this, a blind draw out of a little wooden bowl or whatever. And so I made a second draw. It's completely blind. All right. Same damn rune. I'm like going, no way. But anyway, there you go. I don't know what the odds are. I don't know, 1 in 24. But still, though, it's just it's too random to not be, it's so, all right, maybe the genies are saying, okay, this last little day and night Jinn process, just relax, man, let it happen. And so it's like, okay, all right. Now, then I went ahead and summoned Phoenix to the west. And, oh man, that was like so smooth. Phoenix, actually, the vibe feels like an angel, like very close to his angel. I'm like going, okay, wow, this is not your average genie feel. And all of this, by the way, is like really cool for me because I have not felt the genies like this before. It's more subtle. I can feel them. All right. And I know I've said this before, but I mean, it's just like really cool because when I would first feel the genies come to me way back in like 2008 and 9, they would just feel like a manhole cover on my chest, just a huge weight. There was just no feeling that. It was just too much. But now I'm like able to feel, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is good. And so Phoenix came to me as a woman, which I'm not. I don't care, man, woman, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. and then again mixed really well with the angel vibe. But then the cool thing with Phoenix coming along, I think Phoenix. Let me back up the story before I start this Phoenix story. You guys remember when I hurt my pick hand playing the guitar? Well, now I play a completely different way, and I have to warm up with a different way, a little slower. And then I came up with this really cool blues chord progression. Nothing real special. I don't leave the major chords, but it was just a really cool progression. I got a cool beat going with my both hands. And now, years before now, I wrote a song back in 2008 called Dead in Texas, and it was about a zombie vampire attack in Texas, and it's a country rap song, and every time I play it, people really perk up. They really love the song. I think the genies are behind that too. And it's just me just running away from all these vampires in Texas. It's a really clever song, really well written. I know I'm like bragging on myself, but I'll let you know when I suck, and I do suck a lot at a lot of what I do, but that song is good. So anyway, this other chord progression I'm talking about, it just popped into my head. My nephew once told me that, look, your Dead in Texas song needs a sequel because it's a cliffhanger. You just, the story goes in the song where the guy just stops off at a Texaco and sews up a bad cut that he has, and then he just drinks some beer and gets high, and then that's it. That's the end of the story. And so this story is a completely different style of song and like some kind of blues feel to it, not rap. And the guy goes back to the town and then blows it up in a chemical explosion. And I know my nephew's going to love it. And the song just has a set of balls. It's a really, it's got a good feel. And the cool thing is I am putting a spell behind the song. And my brother's going to sing it. So we'll see what happens with that. This is now reminding me of the boat and building the boat with my dad. Maybe there's some kind of redemption that's going to happen. I don't think so. Some kind of, not redemption, but reckoning. But I don't know, and I don't care. I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may. But this is one damn good song. And so I thought it was kind of clever. Now, I have to chalk this up to Phoenix's influence because, it just kind of happened. It's nothing I planned out. So, and those are the best, that's the best way to do things. So anyway, I got that going for me. And then I summoned Halphus, who came along with his genie, and he has a much darker, more martial kind of vibe. But, he goes along really well with his angel. And they showed up quick, man. Easy. Not like ball in a garage. This is like smooth sailing. Could be where I'm at. I could be kind of protected right now. I don't know. It could be all of the archangel and ruler summoning that I do, because it's at least once a day. But now I'm just kind of doing it without all the formalities. I'm just doing it. And I think that's kind of how you wanted it to turn out to be, Ari, but I do both. I kind of formally face a certain direction and do it, once or twice a day. But then a couple of more times a day, I just do it. Because I'm not always going to know where east is. I suppose I could carry around a compass. Well, wait a second, I do carry around a compass. Okay, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I summoned Halphus. He came along, had a great vision of him. He was like in a huge throne. He was like purple, black, and blue. Had this long beard, mustache, long hair. He was a formidable entity, really, and cool. But I'm looking at it, and I really like to be sure about my visions. And as soon as I said that, he's like holding up a dove, going, "Okay, here's the dove. All right, it's me. Let's go." All right, so let's move them into a day and night genie now that they're here. And so I did, and it's been about 3 or 4 days, and everything does seem to be pretty cool. I got just a couple hours ago, I got a vision of a bride and groom. And the bride was in white, the groom was in black. The groom definitely had a Halphus vibe. The bride, Phoenix, I realize it's not going exactly along with the yin and yang kind of thing, but I don't know if that's all that important. The important thing was the message was pretty clear that they're set as a day and night genie. Now, I could be, Ari, wrong. So I know you can pick up a lot of things through, vibe, and, you can just get a sense of whether someone's doing something right or wrong. I don't think I can be wrong, but again, it's your system, and I'm trying to make it work. So here I am touching base. And so, yeah, even though there is like waiting time, choosing that rune made me not so anxious. I think, paranoid and sulking and wondering, oh God, I'm doing something wrong. I know I'm doing something wrong. But, no, that's not the case. It's just, and it's good. And I never went through that, oh God, I'm doing something wrong. I need to work harder. I never went through that. And I don't want to go through that. So anyway, that is my story. Dr. J out.
Okay, so for the final commentary, I'm not going to get into analyzing whatever Jay did here. There's nothing to really say. Everything is going according to the way it should be going. What I will say, however, is to emphasize, because Jay doesn't talk much about this, the role of the angels. And this is important because we have the symbolism of the pillar that I mentioned before. And the angels are the sky or celestial portion of the pillar, but they also represent the higher consciousness of the summoner, or what's connected to the higher consciousness. Without them, the jinn exhibit lower consciousness, which does not make them bad or evil. It just makes them, just like individuals whose consciousness is not refined, susceptible to corruption and instinctual obsession and stuff where they don't relate positively to the human factor. There might be an antagonism there. However, with the angels, this changes because it automatically tunes the jinn into this higher purpose. And what is this higher purpose that the angels represent? Because the jinn originally, they were found in other grimoires, of course. This is a compilation, but the compilation works because of the higher consciousness involved that complements them. We have an earth-sky connection through the pillar that represents the human presence. So the jinn in this case, coupled with the angels, not as to police them or to restrict them, but essentially to keep to the course, to keep to the potential that they truly naturally represent, which is a potential of the union of earth and sky, just like in human individuals. Their cultivation is a cultivation of the union between earth and sky, to put it in a shamanistic context. So these angels, as I had said in earlier commentaries, but here let's focus in on it. I did some research, and the angel names are derived from, of course, 3 verses in Exodus. And these 3 verses have 72 letters each. There is no other place in the Old Testament or the New Testament that has such a symmetry. And not only that, you don't even find 3 or any consecutive verses that have the same number of letters, let alone 72 letters, which is a number that fits perfectly into a 360-degree circle. So you have an integral number of degrees for each letter on the so-called wheel. And that makes these angels, these three-letter names that become angels when you add the suffixes, or they present themselves as such, as a harmonic derivation, and they should be angels and not just three-letter names, because the biblical verses refer to the protecting angel, and this angel protects the Israelites. And to take it out of the context of we are the people type of thing, and into the context of what the word Israel means. And the word Israel means the upright, the righteous, but the ones who are upright, of El, divine upright individuals, which esoterically, not ethically, esoterically speaking, it means that their middle pillar is straight and open. And this brings us to the patriarch whose name was given as Israel, the upright, who had the vision of the ladder that connected the angels going up and down between earth and sky. This conduit was personified by this individual who battled an angel, who wrestled with an angel in order to gain that personification. By wrestling and defeating the angel, it wasn't an act of malice, aggressive warfare, antagonism. It was an act of personification, of embodiment, of, oh, this isn't just a ladder outside of me. This is also a ladder inside of me. I may not be an angel. I mean, they could put it in those terms, biblically speaking. That's kind of blasphemous in a way. But like an angel, instead of me being the messenger going up and down the so-called staircase, I am the staircase through which the messengers go up and down. The message is one of esoteric accomplishment, of opening up the pillar to become a conduit of these divine messengers that come into our being and inspire us. So you have this protecting angel then that takes the people who are righteous across the Sea of Reeds, across the boundary line from the mundane world to the promised land, to the world of actualization. And this is also the world of the Ring of Solomon. This is the world where cultivation comes into fruition, where the earth and the sky are one. It's the land of milk and honey. That's not just a nutrition thing. It's not just, oh, we got a lot of food and drink here and nourishment. What it is that sweetness and nourishment flow through us, through the middle pillar. Esoterically speaking again, because we're looking at this from an angle that is both mythic and symbolic of us reaching a state of what you might call completion, where we could live up to our potential. This is what, as I said, the name Solomon means, Shaloma. It also, the consonants also form the word that means garment. So the circle itself is like a garment of the being, of the upright nature of the individual. And it's also a state of completion. I won't say perfection. We are incomplete beings. We are fragmented beings. We are beings with a lot of loose ends. And healing means coming into wholeness, coming into completion. So these angels are geared for that. They take us across the perils of whatever is hounding us, the karma that is hounding us, because interestingly enough, the Israelites, the upright, move from west to east. They move from the past. In fact, when Adam and Eve were expelled from the Edenic garden, they went east. So they're moving toward the new. They were expelled from their primordial roots and entered into a state of evolution, because the East isn't just a static place, it's a state of continuous renewal. And so the promised land was east of Egypt, east of the mundane world. So Adam and Eve, and if you take it like that, if you take it symbolically, it's like, okay, humanity left this primordial place and then went through a state of trials and tribulations of the mundane world, the flatlined three-dimensional worlds, shall we say, or four-dimensional one, and then they moved into the promised land of greater possibility, greater potential. And this is why the Jinn can align with them, because this is a deeper dynamic than just somebody making something up or even designing something. Like, let's put these symbols together with these symbols, and then that'll turn into this. No, it's essentially, let's take the nature of this purpose and ground it into states of being that pre-exist in the human collective or human experience, and these are the Jinn. The Jinn are not, they're separate beings than the angels in most traditions. Christianity, Judaism kind of glosses over this. And Christianity also glosses over this. And then when you look toward the east, toward Iran, Persia, Media, the empire before the Persians, the empire of the Magi, the magicians, and India, you don't see angels and jinn, you see devas and asuras. And so, and they're kind of almost interchangeable terms between Persia and India. So things can get confusing. But for our purposes, we have jinn that are energetic beings of a terrestrial nature or a quasi-terrestrial nature. And then you have the spiritual angels, which are of a celestial nature. And then you have humans, which are of a physically terrestrial nature, who also have energy bodies, spirits, souls, that the other two do not have, at least the soul part. The soul part is the center through which the core divine emerges, what you might call Christ consciousness, the Christic presence, the potential. So Christianity would say, for example, that everything aside, you have this presence that has come directly into the planet and sacrificed itself, offered itself to the planet, not to God. See, if you look at it esoterically, the Christic sacrifice is not about sacrificing to God, unless in the greater extent that encompasses everything. Sacrificing to the divine plan, so to speak, the evolutionary plan, the evolutionary dynamic, but offered to the earth in order to be embedded, and then as a kind of template or example for humanity to emulate. Not just through, oh, let's read the words and copy them. Let's copy the behavior, let's do whatever. No, this is the essence. This is an esoteric thing. This is a mystical act. And that is where the core of something like Christianity comes in. And in India, you have the avatars of Vishnu and other things that help evolution along or that represent stages of transition. But here, you have an alignment of a particular essence that is offered to the earth so humanity can incorporate it into its own potential. And this is already there. And I will disagree about the paying lip service to the word and all of this stuff. You know, this is an essence. And so, of course, if you believe in the person and the life and all of this of Jesus, that gives you a kind of one-up. But it also carries the baggage of all the misinterpretations and the misunderstandings and the fact that the religion itself has lost much of its mystical nature, and the rest of it has been grossly distorted. So I'm not contesting any of that, but I am saying, as somebody who isn't technically a Christian, that esoterically speaking, there is a treasure there. And this treasure, if you are open in your heart to the principle of the human soul, which is now evolved into a point of emergence beyond what it was before. And this emergence, because it's merged with the planet, you might say, the planetary condition, can take us to a new relationship with the planet. And this alignment between jinn and celestial angels forms a series of pillars that are reflective of that relationship. And yes, this is all heresy, of course, but I'm a Magus, okay? And you got to remember that's one of the most strongly persecuted ideologies was the Magian ideology, because it was shamanistic in the sense of pragmatic shamanism, where earlier they catered to the good, but they also tried to placate the corrupt. Like in Mesopotamia, you had these spirits that caused death and plagues and miscarriages and all of this, and people sacrificed to them and prayed to them, please don't hurt us. You know, we know that you don't like us or whatever, and we got to pay tribute and all of this, and they do that. So then the later religions are tired of that. So they want to demonize the other ones and persecute anybody who, kill off anybody who is against that, because it's considered. And in a way, I would say that's part of the evolution of the karma, although, again, it's been distorted. Before, you had a kind of ecosystemic balance, you might say, between the forces that were deeply embedded into matter that kept the status quo of human suffering, that you mitigated through making some kind of deal with them, and that's what shamans do. Magi are essentially Magianism is a form of shamanism. A little more advanced, I would say. There's more cultivation involved. But at the same time, you have the celestial influences that says, you got to get beyond that because you don't really like this state. And the earth, over long periods of time, but the earth goes through periods of mass extinctions and trials and tribulations and all these weather phenomena and this and that. That's all tied to the human system. You can't really separate it. So from an esoteric perspective, because this isn't science as most people understand science, in any modern sense. This is a different perspective. And from this perspective, human evolution, in order to establish a more harmonized relationship with the world, the universe, nature, and activate its own potential with respect to the world, because humans have a role to play that is a natural one, and it's not some directive from a divine source that says you have to do this. This is why souls or spirits or the accumulation that makes up a human individual from top to bottom, from inside and out, that accumulation, that synthesis of attributes is here to realize a certain existential ambition, a dream. And this has to do with upgrading existence and the world to a point where it cannot do so on its own, even through divine intervention. I mean, human presence is divine intervention, just like the whole Christ consciousness thing is divine intervention. All right, I wanted to just express this, and Jay is on that path. He's integrating in that sense, everything he's doing, so there is no, I don't want the so-called left-handers to go, but this is, I want some cool demons, or other people to say, no, this is bad and you just have to stick with the angel. Well, the angels don't ground very easily. They need an intermediary, just like we can't just separate our minds and have it fly around and expect to do anything. The mind is connected to the energetic state, and that's connected to the physical frame. All of these things work in concert. And so our Jinn activation is also working in concert with whatever supports it. Okay, thank you for listening. If you've gone this far, please check out my Substack. I'm on a roll again with the articles. I'm going to talk about angels there, the archangels, to talk about AI. It's written, of course, articles, and about other esoteric topics. We'll go into the Ameshaspenta, the Iranian angels, and why they're seven, and why these seven surround the throne. There's a purpose to that. And of course, aside from the podcasts, there are the yoga videos and metaphysical instruction videos that I have on YouTube. And these are going to go into advanced territory as well. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Magus out.